Okay, are we ready to roll?
Yes.
Excellent. Greetings. I would like to take a moment to thank the Moyer School for this opportunity to share some wonderful insights, particularly along the astrological line today, with additional thanks to Rose, BL, and Michael. Without their extreme patience and technical skills, none of these presentations would ever see the light of day. And then, of course, I'd like to thank all of you for taking time from your busy schedule to be a part of this group dynamic. Now, today's main theme is how contemporary science is continually discovering what the ageless wisdom teachings have known and affirmed for thousands of years. How esoteric wisdom and knowledge is slowly becoming exoteric. We're going to explore our connection to the stars and other planetary and heavenly bodies. Technically, we're going to see how this transmission of greater forces in the universe communicate not only with one another, but how they travel from a higher level to a lower one, which will include a number of short videos. In one of our feedback sessions at our last presentation on overstimulation, several members of the group indicated that they missed some of the animations, so we're back. Okay. Astronomers have recently discovered an interstellar tunnel that connects our solar system to other stars. Now, this is very relevant, very revelatory, because we have sort of always known this, and some of the cutting edge astronomical and astrological groups have theorized that plasma is universal and it connects us. But recent discoveries have really solidified that, and I think this is going to be an interesting presentation. After years of careful mapping, a new analysis reveals what appears to be a channel of hot, low-density plasma stretching out from our solar system towards distant constellations. Keeping in mind, this is conventional science now. Astronomers from the Max Planck Institute recently confirmed, using data from the eROSITA instrument. Dr. Sala, lead researcher, and colleagues shared these findings in a paper published in the Journal of Astronomy and Astrophysics. This new area of discovery, estimated to be about 300 light years across, formed as a result of powerful stellar explosions called supernovas. They heat the surrounding gas, producing a low-density, high-temperature environment. Traces of these distant events still linger as wispy distributions of hot plasma. These new channels of discovery in astronomy challenge old assumptions and add complexity to the picture of what lies between our sun and the nearest stars. Every new piece of evidence will bring us closer to understanding both the space we inhabit today and the ancient events that shaped it. What once seemed distant and unknowable may soon reveal connections that redefine our place in the cosmos. The full study is published in the journal Astronomy and Astrophysics. What stands out in the detection of a channel, a plasma channel or tunnel, appears to stretch towards the Centaurus constellation. This feature seems to punch through the hot material connecting our neighborhood to distant star systems. Another such pathway appears to link toward the vicinity of Canis Major. Data hints these might be just one part of a larger branching network of channels that run between star-forming regions and pockets of heated gas. Centaurus, that was just referred to, is a bright constellation in the southern sky and is one of the largest constellations closest to us. It is also close to the astrological signs of Scorpio and Libra. Centaurus is supposed to be the wise, benevolent centaur Chiron in Greek mythology. Now, here's where we get to the good part. This is what I've shared is just preparatory information for a major revelation. Canis Major, the great dog, lies in the southern sky just southeast of Orion. Like Orion, many of the stars that make up Canis Major are bright. The constellation's brightest star, Sirius, is the brightest star in our night sky. So what these physicists and astronomers have realized is that there is a direct relationship to our star, our solar logos, and through this tunneling of plasma, which I just outlined with some of those technical details, connects us directly with the star Sirius. And here's a little map sort of showing that relationship. And okay, now we've used this chart many, many times, and it clearly indicates that the Sirius connection is probably most powerful because most second ray people are going to be taking the path to Sirius when they reach a high initiation, I think, which is the 6th. Now we know that this connection to Sirius is just a major subject of discussion in all of the Bailey material. And now science is coming to the recognition that there are these conduits and tunnels, avenues that lead directly to that very powerful star. that is dominant in that part of the heavenly body. And you can see here the other ones. I'm not sure exactly what ray 4 and 5 would be. Do you know, BL? We have here ray 1, Great Bear, 2, Sirius, Pleiades 3, Draco 7. I don't
Let
recall
me
exactly. Go
let me
ahead.
pull up my info and see if I have it in it.
You take your time and you interrupt me while you're researching that. I'm just going to, well, we know the sixth ray, DK further states the great star Betelgeuse or Antares and other stupendous suns and solar systems. So Betelgeuse would be the sixth ray. I'm theorizing here. And Antares, maybe that would be the fifth ray or the fourth ray. Anyway, BL's going to get the important information. So our solar logos, which is uh, instrumental in creating this second ray solar system, has this direct link, not only spiritually, divinely on these very high levels, not just psychically, but on a very scientific, rudimentary level just recently discovered. Theorized, but now actually discovered with recent revelations from some of these spacecraft that are out there. We have to also remember that Sirius is the bastion of the White Brotherhood and the great second ray of not just love, but love wisdom. And every one of these star systems that we have listed here, they also all exhibit first ray because they're on such an exalted, advanced level. So you have each one of these constellations or star systems is expressing one dominant ray, but they have two other powerful rays, and they also have the other four subsidiary rays to a much lesser degree. And this, of course, is how they can communicate between each other because they have avenues of plasma and electrical and magnetic energies passing and crossing and crisscrossing. And this is important because when we get into these animations, if we didn't articulate and build a good fifth ray basis for this, these animations could be interpreted as just beautiful images or colorful animations. And yes, you can see that, but the attempt is to see these conduits as energies in motion. Okay, BL, did you come across any additional info? And if you haven't, that's fine. But when you do, you just jump in.
Yeah, I just pulled up my spreadsheet. I haven't got too far with it yet. Solar Fire identifies the rays, and I have it in my spreadsheet here somewhere. I just have to figure
Well,
out.
you take your time and you stop us wherever we're at. So now we're moving into the importance of comets and asteroids. And I have to give out a slight warning here. They're often used interchangeably. In fact, scientists use them interchangeably. So when we're reading that asteroids are simply a phenomena for our local solar system. That's not entirely correct. Scientists use the term asteroids for forces coming outside of our solar system. Anyway, it has been proven by
Okay.
new. Okay, go ahead.
Sorry.
No,
Doobie in Ursa Major is the source of ray 5 in our solar system. Um, let me see.
and for those of you who are not astrologers, Dubé is one of the stars in the Great Bear,
Yes, yes.
Ursa Major.
Yeah, I think, let me see here. My spreadsheet is pretty wide, so I have to, okay, here we go. Um, all, all core, the smaller companion of Mizar in the Great Bear is in the handle, the middle in the handle. Oleoid, oleoid uh, in the Great Bear is the source of ray 3. Um, and Ursa Major, the Great Bear, is related to the Archangel Michael.
Excellent. First ray with the flaming sword. Excellent, BL.
Let me see here. Let me see if I can. Okay. Alcade in the Great Bear, the left handle, is the primary source of ray 1.
That would
Do be
be
one of the pointers of ray 5. Here we go. Migras, the top left of the bowl, is the source for ray 4.
ray 4. Excellent.
Merrick is the source of ray 6. The bottom pointer.
Vegda probably is the last one.
Yeah, I have that as the source of ray 7. And I mean, they have different names, and of course, not only are they associated with the Archangel Michael, but they're also associated with the 7 rishis.
Of the Great Bear, yes.
And then Mizar, middle handle, part of the binary star with Alcor, is the source for ray 2, I believe. Yeah, the
Excellent.
source for ray 2. So that gives all of them. And
Excellent. Thank you.
I think if you look at them, 1, 2, and 3 are the handle, and then 4, 5, 6, and 7 are the bold part, the 4.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, BL. That was very helpful. Anyway, DK states in a quote from Treatise in Cosmic Fire, figures also must be computed when the effect upon the planets of what are called asteroids is known. This is much greater than exoteric science has so far admitted, but the significance of this must eventually be interpreted in terms of energy on etheric levels. So any of you who are following Thunderbolts of the God who present and have for years this new electric universe theory, indicate that asteroids and comets are not merely composed of metal, ice, rock, and gas, as conventional science indicates, but also veil powerful magnetic and electrical forces as well. And once again, we come back to the idea of plasma. Esotericism teaches that asteroids and comets are the physical bodies of spiritual entities, and that these entities can bring new and dynamic influences into our solar system. When speaking of hidden etheric planets, DK had this to say. Okay, so let's review some of the asteroids that have come recently, at least recently in say the last 15 years, and come into our system from outside. Asteroids and other objects can originate from outside of our solar system. These are known as interstellar objects, and scientists believe that many such objects pass through our solar system each year, although they are difficult to detect. The discovery of the first confirmed interstellar object, Oumuamua, in 2017, and the later discovery of Borisov, and the recent one that we're going to talk a little bit about today, Atlas, provide direct evidence of this phenomena. Atlas is only the third interstellar object to have been confirmed, making it an exceedingly rare and exciting event. As Atlas speeds back into the depths of interstellar space, this image is both a scientific milestone and a source of wonder. It reminds us that our solar system is just one part of a vast and dynamic galaxy, and that even the most fleeting visitors can leave a lasting impact. Well, little does this particular scientist know that these asteroids and comets can bring powerful forces. Rudolf Steiner, in his wonderful work, goes into this in great detail, and he claims that certain asteroids or comets can be negative. They can be bringing in involutionary energies into our solar system, or pass into our solar system, then passing out, or they can bring in positive, healing, transformational energy. And there's a particular passage in the works of Rudolf Steiner where he says there are other groups of asteroids and comets that have a dual purpose. They come into our solar system, and as they're passing through, they absorb negative energy, and they replace that negative energy with an outgoing, outbound, positive series of forces that are redemptive in nature. So it's has a dual purpose. Like a sponge, it absorbs elemental life that's no longer needed, and it's negative to our system, and then it pours out these new benevolent astrological Aquarian energies. Fascinating. So Atlas, I believe, is going to be the closest to the sun in October, and the closest to the Earth in December. I don't know the exact date. So this is coming up shortly. Okay, so let's explore a little bit about this idea of magnetic ropes or channels between heavenly bodies, constellations, suns, and our system and our planets. And this is something that's been recently discovered. I'm going to guess, say, the last 5 years. And that is NASA has, with its sensitive equipment, has observed magnetic ropes for the first time between Saturn and the Sun. Notice it's like spaghetti, and notice these gyrating strings are coming from the, I'm going to guess, it's coming from one of the poles. Now, normally that would be a northern pole, and the energies from the sun come down, they twist, they turn, they as they go in these dances, and that's what we're going to explore with the animations, make their entrance into Saturn, and then from Saturn, and this is not shown here, they fan out and connect in to all of the other planetary lives. So we have to remember that the auric field has multiple levels, and this may be one of the lower ones, just as we as human beings have etheric bodies, and we have these similar ropes or funnels or tunnels that have different levels of expression. Okay, and this is another one that's recent. This is just discovered over the last couple of years, that these bands, these electrical and magnetic bands, and to the left you can see that radiation coming because that would like be the sun, and this is the shock wave, and this is how the earth protects itself from these ultraviolet and solar radiations that would snuff out life if there weren't these protective envelopes around it. And this is also true of us. But note that these striations, these blue striations, when NASA really analyzed in greater detail, they found that they were even smaller striations, or these different flows of energy. And I mention this because one of the keynotes of the third initiation is the ability of the disciple to striate their mental field so that energies from causal levels, the soul, upper triad, and then eventually the one monadic life, will have no impediments. There'll be no resistance. And if you take a bunch of electrical lines and scramble them, electricity, plasma, magnetism is impeded and will not flow through uniformly. Now, this is one of the striations that the sun puts off. It's a discharge of plasma, and the actual technical name for that eludes me. Can anybody recall when the sun gives these explosive discharges? I guess it's a solar flare. Anyway, they've analyzed these solar flares, and this is what they look like. These major solar flares are broken up into lesser magnetic electrical charges, different grades and qualities of plasma. For those of you who have researched the permanent atoms, the physical, astral, mental permanent atoms, they're composed very similar to this discharge from the sun, where these what is called spirelli, they striate out and they wrap themselves around the permanent atom with secondary forces. Okay. Are there any questions up to this point? And I apologize for not taking a short
Yes,
hiatus here.
we have a number of comments.
Please.
Okay. Diana says it's interesting to learn about the fourth ray constellation due to its cycle of influence starting in 2025.
Yes. Michael Robbins indicated to me at one point that the fourth ray came in 1925 and it would reach its apex of potency and influence in 2025. So the fourth ray, we know, has multiple levels. On a rudimentary level, it's harmony through conflict. And boy, we can see a lot of that in the world today. However, when the fourth ray matures, when the fourth ray really develops its highest composition, it's something that you can really only fully understand at the fourth initiation because it's so advanced. The fourth ray at the fourth initiation. But the fourth ray, like all the rays and all the planes, they have four subplanes. And humanity is working up through the lower subplanes of that fourth ray right now. And isn't the soul ray of humanity the fourth ray? BL or any of you additional astrologers who are out there? Yeah,
It could be. The fourth ray is associated with humanity. The third ray is as well. So,
yes,
off the top of my head, I don't know which is the personality ray, which is the soul ray, but they're both
very important
intricately
and
tied.
very influential.
You're right.
Okay, excellent. Any additional comments or
Yes,
questions?
there's a couple. Um, Lenny says Doobie is the first ray and Merrick is the first ray in Leo. And that isn't the info that we have, but the Great Bear itself may be associated, all of the stars in it with the first ray. So
Well,
I wouldn't really discount that. And then Walter went in and pretty much said the same thing that I just said. He said the seven stars of the Big Dipper are said to be associated with the seven rays, which according to Michael Robbins were the ones that I gave. Alcade, Ray 1, Mizar Ray 2, Alioth Ray 3, Migras Ray 4, Doobie Ray 5, Merrick Ray 6, and Fecta, Fad, whatever, Ray 7. That's also the way they're listed in Solar Fire, the software, which was developed by some esotericists. So, um,
I think we have to take into consideration that DK says that the Great Bear expresses 7 aspects of will, like you'd have Ray 1 would be the will to will. Ray 2 would be the will to love. Ray 3, the will to understand abstractly. That the Great Bear as a composite expresses Ray 1, but it also has all these secondary attributes that show, as I tried to perhaps inadequately a little earlier explain, it depends on what level you're dealing with. And these 7 stars of the Great Bear are so important. And I have done research in other metaphysical systems like Taoism and Sufism, and they the basic claim is that each one of these stars in the Great Bear has a not a Middle Eastern, that would an Arabian, maybe that's not the right word either. It has an Arabian name, and that if you repeat with the right intensity and focus these mantras, the names of these 7 stars of the Great Bear are not chosen at random. They express some approximation of some mantra that, when recited correctly within a group of disciples that are prepared for this advanced work. So I just wanted to make a few of those small distinctions, but I do it knowing that I am not an esoteric astrologer, and that BL and Walter would know far more than I do. Any additional
Okay.
comments?
Yeah, there are, and I was trying to type in the wills, and I got a little. Anyway, I typed in there towards the end. It's a recent one. Um, the same thing Walter typed in, but what I did was I gave you where the position in the Big Bear those stars are. So, it gives you an orientation of where they are. As I said, rays 1,
Excellent.
2, and 3 are in the handle. Um, okay.
Excellent.
Let me see. Diana says perhaps asteroids and comets activate the elementals of our infradiaphragmic centers or stimulate the celerity of the supradiaphragmatic centers. In other words, above and below the diaphragm, I believe.
Absolutely. This is when we look at the previous chart, and I'm going to zip back because this is a very important concept. Okay. See ray 7 where it says Draco. DK states in his works somewhere that, and we all know that uh, the 7th ray is a major ray right now, not only because it expresses this grounding and rudimentary form of energy that makes the highest connection, like the Great Bear, down here onto the lowest level, but he makes the comment that because Draco has a lot of powerful influence over the lowest centers in the average person, in other words, base of the spine, sacral center, even the solar plexus, that it will overstimulate in the early stages of its impact till humanity gets its act together. So consequently, you have this, he uses a certain word, something like riotous. It's sort of a Victorian word where this is why the sexual orientation of humanity is so dominant right now. And this is not a put down on human sexuality. This is just, as DK would say, the need for humanity to put it in its proper place. Not about celibacy. It's not about pushing down into the lowest subplane, something you don't want to deal with. It's about transmutating these elemental lives that operate involutionary on a very low level. They need to be transmutated from the base of the spine, sacral, solar plexus, up to the throat center. However, DK says, those disciples who are ready for the third initiation, this is very important because it's at the third initiation where the Kundalini fire becomes activated, not by some breathing exercises, not by taking drugs, but by natural emergence or inclination. In other words, when you reach the third initiation and start to undergo that very lofty point of power, you're going to feel the stirring of the Kundalini in the base of the spine. And yet, having said that, people can experience the Kundalini, but differently. It might not necessarily go from the base of the spine up to the throat center. It may not go, it might be the solar plexus to the heart. Depends on what rays you may have on a personality level and on a soul level. And then ultimately, monadically, because the monad is really controlling all this. And at the third initiation, you begin to feel the pull of the monad, not just the soul. It's what lies behind the soul. So the Tibetan says that this is the time of the gathering in of the arhats, that not since the time of the Buddha has the opportunity for those undergoing the second initiation, preparing for the third, or going through the third initiation can tap into this energy, because Draco has a direct connection with Ray 1. And even though in most disciples it's obviously not fully developed, it's embryonically there. And to quote H.P. Blavatsky from The Secret Doctrine, she said that you will not experience the Kundalini until you reach a certain high level, and that you have that service dominates your life, because that indicates that the heart is opening fully. And when the heart opens, it sends a stream down to the base of the spine, which actually causes the Kundalini to rise in its majesty and in its power. So I've just given you a lot of tidbits of information. Even some of it may appear a little contradictory, and I apologize for that. But this is historically the time for many of us to latch on to these first ray energies. And even Sirius has a powerful first ray influence. And it also, DK says with Sirius, it activates higher intelligence. You might think, oh, well, wouldn't you go to the Pleiades or one of the stars in the Great Bear as we just outlined? When you go to the path of Sirius and enter into that great white brotherhood, that bastion, it affects your mental equipment as well. Not as we understand it as minutia and tidbits of information, but grand strategies and plan. Look, what's the plan that the Christ has? We can say it's to love unconditionally, but DK would say that the purpose, and this is so relevant right now, 2025, the purpose is to understand unconditional love guided by divine will, intelligently understood. Those are the three qualities of the new Agni Yoga that is supplanting and beginning to override 10,000 years of teachings with Raja Yoga. Okay, any additional comments? Sorry for that
Yes,
diatribe.
we still have several. Greg says, yes, for sure, since the lower diaphragmatic centers are the physical externalization, I believe, of our lower cosmic etheric vehicles that include the solar plexus, lower generative organs, and seat of the soul chakra, which in our meditations are the first steps in our visualization for higher alignment, allowing for our higher spiritual awakening. Cool. And with the spleen, become the vibratory centers that bind us to the higher chakras above the solar plexus.
Excellent. Thank you so much. That's a very important insight. One of the things we have to realize is that every ray has 7 subplanes. The 3 higher actually have a relationship with the soul. The 3 lower are involutionary, as Greg has eloquently outlined. And the 4th subplane is where, to quote the Tibetan, where you pass, where you go and become an aspirant to the great mysteries. You're sort of beginning, but your astral body is in high gear and you're yearning for more knowledge. And in the Dina books, the Tibetan says, this is the first esoteric meditation I'm going to give you. And without going into it and oversimplifying, it's basically raising solar plexus energy into the heart center. Okay, any additional comments? Thank you, Greg.
Yes, a lot. Okay, Vivian answered your question earlier, and she says coronal mass ejection for the
Thank you.
solar flares. Um, Francis says harmony through synthesis evolving now.
Yes.
That's a question.
Well, yes, harmony through conflict is the result of harmony through synthesis. And I like the word synthesis because it is so universal and it, it applies to everything that we're doing to bring synthesis into all of our activities, all of our thoughts, all of our aspirations, and work within the family, within your community, the esoteric groups you work with. Synthesis. Thank you, Francis.
Um, Let me see what we got here. Diana uploaded the chart 11, Babbitt's atom, into the chat. So if anybody wants to download that.
Excellent.
Sylvia confirms the Ray 4 is the soul of humanity.
Excellent.
Um, and I did finally successfully put in the 7 wills from Esoteric Astrology, page 605, Ray 1, the will to initiate, 2, the will to unify, 3, the will to evolve, 4, the will to harmonize, 5, the will to act, 6, the will to cause, and 7, the will to express.
Excellent. Thank you, BL.
Sylvia says the 1st and 7th ray are synthetic rays.
Yes. They're synthetic rays. And I've made the comment, which has raised a few eyebrows, because DK alludes to this and HPB alludes to this, that there is only one ray. And for purposes of manifestation, there's this great outbreathing in ray 2, ray 3, 4, 5, 6, and then it's all grounded on the 7th ray. It's all aspects of the 1st ray, and that when the Kundalini, to go back to an earlier statement, when it's like an elastic. If you take an elastic and imagine it's full unity in your hand, and you take your thumb and forefinger and you stretch it, there's what happens? You create tension. Okay, well, that's what divinity does. It takes a oneness and it through its unique ability to extend itself on multiple levels, it comes apart like an accordion. But when the bottom of the accordion, which is like Draco, finally realizes, hey, this isn't my home, And I'm just as sacred as all these other guys. And I appreciate your patience with this analogy. It longs, it it longs to return back to its source of departure. And then the seventh ray merges with the first ray, and there are no other rays. There's just ray one. So we're in that tension of the elastic, and every initiation you undergo, let us say your two hands are a foot apart. Every initiation that you undergo, the bottom hand will go up an inch or 2 inches, and the tension becomes less, and then it becomes less, and then it becomes less, because these rays are only separated for our mental and personality understanding. Yes, all the theories and principles and laws are based on all these seven rays, seven planes, seven this, seven that. However, the four lower fuse with ray 3, ray 3, ray 2, and then ray 2 with ray 1. It's like an accordion, and each one has a note, it has a sound, it has a color, it has a vibrational mathematical frequency, and every initiation draws you closer and closer to that great revelation of pure fire. No geometry, no teachings, just is being, as Michael would say, just pure being, infinitude. Okay, any additional comments?
Yes, we still have a lot to go through, but that conversation reminds me of the words of power that were given for the seven rays. And of course, ray seven is the higher and lower meet.
Yes. And those words of power are a Western interpretation of what I was saying earlier. And this is just a generalization, so keep that in mind. The words of power that the Tibetan gives us is in English. However, the original words of power are like what Walter and BL and others have shared around the seven stars of the Great Bear. You know, Alioth, Mizar, Benny Nash, Migres, Dubé, Merrick, Vegda. Even those are veils, but they're closer approximations. So when you get deeply into the use of words of power at the third initiation, linked with proper rhythmic and deep breathing, it makes the path of return much more scientific, because you have to sort of know, relatively speaking, what your rays are. You don't want to be focusing, overly focusing on a first ray word of power when you're really more of a second ray disciple. But that's sort of a given. Okay, any additional comments?
Yes, Walter says another reason why Draco, ray seven, is significant constellation is because within it lies the ecliptic pole, the synthetic point on the celestial sphere where all 12 zodiac signs meet.
Wow, that is very powerful, Walter. Thank you so much. And one other tidbit of occult minutia that we need to keep in mind is that the sun is our solo logos, and all of the planets are centers within that great being. And the humble planet Earth is the base of the spine center. So there's a direct relationship to Draco, because the seventh ray operates. And I don't know what the rays are of our planet. Seems to me, Michael said, and some of you can correct me, that the rays of our planetary logos are rays 1, 2, and 3. Ray 1 monad, ray 2 soul, ray 3 personality. But that may not be correct. Walter, do you remember what the Tibetan says, or maybe even Michael or BL? Because
Yeah, I'd have to go through. Michael Robbins did give us his hypothesis for those, and I'd have to go through and figure out where I have that info because God only knows.
Keep in mind that,
Oh, wait a minute. I think I
okay,
just found it. Okay.
awesome.
He says for the earth, the personality ray is ray 3, the mental ray is ray 4, the astral ray is ray 4, the physical ray is ray 3, the soul ray is ray 2, and the monadic ray is ray 1. So you had it right, Duane, when you said uh, monadic 1, soul 2, uh, personality 3.
Michael and I have a long history that goes back to the 70s, and Michael Robbins knew Miriam Walter, who was part of the Arcane School, broke away and did what was called the applicants of the portal material. And when Michael and Keith cleaned out her apartment after Marion migrated to the other side and checked out, they were in possession of what these applicants of the portal sets that she used for quite a few years. And there was an irony here because I, at that time in the 70s, had the privilege of cleaning out Ariel Bell's garage. She was a personal friend of Alice Bailey and was a part of these esoteric teachings. And she had like half of these applicants of the portal study sets. And when I met Michael Robbins and Keith Bailey in the 70s, we suddenly realized to our shock and surprise that now we could complete all of these sets, and they're very extensive. There's like 500-600 pages. But the point I'm alluding to here is that Michael had access to additional information that even the Tibetan didn't reveal. And I'm not here to argue one way or the other anything about this applicants of the portal material. But if you come across stuff that Michael was theorizing, some of it was strictly from his own brilliance, and other aspects of it might have been from some of these teachings that now that he had all the seven or 17 sets, and I had all the 17 sets, and I went on to actually electronically record all those, and you can find them at Makara. They're called the applicants of the portal. It's pretty advanced meditations, and it'll give you some insight about the arcane school and its history.
And
Because they,
also, there was unpublished material that Marion had that Michael then had access to that was from DK.
yes, Masonic stuff and stuff on initiation. Yes, and Walter knows about the triple sun and BL being astrologers meditations, and that is part of this new 2025 dispensation that and we've been building towards that. This information about the triple sun meditations was actually not made public. DK held it back, and by different reasons and peculiarities I won't go into, it finally was made public, and now we can. It wasn't complete, but enough of it was given so that any disciple along any ray line or certain astrological influences could project or anticipate, what DK may have said about this sign. In fact, I suspect UBL and Walter being exposed to some of that material could be very instrumental in maybe one day putting together all the other signs, because DK only went through, I can't remember, maybe 3, 4, but all of the different astrological signs were not represented. Is that accurate, Walter?
Three
If you're still
signs.
with us?
He covered 3 signs.
Okay, excellent. Okay, any additional comments before we continue?
Yeah, we have a bunch, but here, I'm in the middle of typing in the link where people can find the info on the applicants at the portal and the other documents that Michael had. It's on the compilation page on Makara, and it's off to the right-hand panel. You can find all of his little documents and everything. Okay, I just put that in there. So now let's get back to Lenny says our logos, Earth is the base center for the solar logos. That's why the solar logos is the will to follow for Earth.
Yes, excellent. Thank you.
And there was a question here. Oh, here we go. Heliosol said, I have a quick question about Raja Yoga.
Okay, go ahead, Raja Yoga. What's the question?
Here we go. Can you unmute yourself, Heliosol, and ask your question about Raja Yoga? Well, I don't see her unmuting.
While we're
Mute.
waiting,
Okay, okay. It's really quick. If I know we have so much to cover, but I would like to ask Duane opinion on this 10,000 years about the Yoga Raja. Are people who are in the Yoga Raja, are we 10,000 years back? Or it's information, or it's a let's say this divine practice will be catching up. I just didn't pick up on that. What do we need to do about it? Like briefly, from what aspect should we look at it?
briefly, I love that word. Unfortunately, there's nothing briefly in the occult pantheon. However, I will do my best. Thank you for your patience. Raja Yoga has always been considered the royal road, the king of all yogas, because it synthesizes all the other yogas, Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and now there are many exceptions, and I hate to generalize, but I'm going to have to. Raja Yoga is based on perennial laws and principles, so it can't change. However, with humanity evolving and becoming more intelligent, more sensitive, wanting to take higher initiations, yes, Raja Yoga has evolved, and for the most part, it's still considered the royal road. However, when you study Agni Yoga by the Roriches or Agni Yoga by DK, and there's not a lot on it, but there's enough that clearly states that Agni Yoga is the new Aquarian yoga that's going to superimpose itself. It's not that there's anything wrong with Raja Yoga. It's the fact that Raja Yoga is the kingly yoga because it's a mental yoga. It takes you from the physical etheric with Hatha Yoga and Bhakti Yoga, which is emotional. And again, I hate to generalize because a lot of yogas practice different techniques that combine different yogas. But anyway, Agni Yoga is the opening of the heart fully and the drawing down of the will of the Father. So it's not just a mental yoga. You have to have built and striated your mental field to be able to receive these impressions that come from the solar angel, from these higher devas. from the masters, and the requirements become more stringent every cycle. And one day, the third initiation will be the second initiation because there'll be an upgrade. And there has to be, because this is how evolution goes forward. So Agni Yoga, okay, I'm going to tell you what Agni Yoga is. Haha, this is a good one. In 1 minute or less. Agni Yoga, according to DK, is a disciple who is now an initiate who has opened all three of their higher head centers, not just one, like the Ajna center, not just the egoic lotus in the 1,000-petal lotus, but the opening of the crown chakra with those other two. Those are considered the three highest head centers. And they integrate the personality, they allow you to make soul contact, and then they, at the third, you begin to make contact with very advanced angelic and Davic lives, the masters in their own different ashrams, although the ashrams of the masters are now on the Buddhic plane and no longer on the mental, they still have an outpost for those disciples coming up through the ranks. So Agni Yoga requires love. And I know it's an oversimplification. We say it so often, it's almost, well, to quote the Tibetan, almost lost some of its meaning. But it's love under the impression of the divine will. So that's the upper triad. You're no longer working with the four attributes. You're working with the three primary rays, ray 1, 2, and 3. Ray 1, crown center. Ray 2, egoic lotus, and this is irrespective of what ray your solar angel may be, it's still very much dominated by love. And then ray 3, active intelligence, but active intelligence in a very, very high order, prototypes, plans that are universal in application, not just minutia and technicalities. Okay, I hope that was helpful.
She says, thank you. And Diana put some info in there from the DK books. Karma yoga resulted in the awakening of the four centers located below the diaphragm. Bhakti yoga resulted in the mutation and transfer to the two centers located above the diaphragm, the cardiac and laryngeal centers. That DK also tells us that Bhakti yoga was common in the fourth root race.
Yes.
Raja Yoga is the synthesis of all forces of the body and the head, and from there distributes and controls them. That's DK tells us is the fifth root race is working on that, and then he says the next root race will be the yoga of synthesis, that Agni yoga or fire yoga. Developing the consciousness and intuition and spiritual perception on the higher mental plane, as you were just saying, doing. So
Excellent.
a little bit of
Thank
what
you.
Diana said, combined with the information that DK gives us. Really good information on the different types of yoga can be found, of course, in Light of the Soul, the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, and also
Yes.
there's some information in I think it's Letters on Occult Meditation.
In the
Anyway.
study of the new astrology that DK indicates is emerging, which is an Aquarian science, there are two subsidiary sciences that are not well utilized or recognized. And this is one of the reasons why I worked with Michael Robbins for some 30 years, because my background was not in astrology. And somebody might ask, well, why would he invite you to be a part of one of the key coordinators for the PhD program down at Danny and Danielle's in San Diego? back in 89 through to 91, because Michael could see that the two subsidiary sciences of the science of triangles, which is all astrology, in addition to other things, but it's all primarily about triangles, how forces come and go and how they redeem and how they descend and rise. And the two additional sciences are the science of mantra or sound and the science of Laya Yoga. Now, for those of you who have read the Bailey books, you'll come across where DK says Laya Yoga was used in Atlantis and it led to all kinds of black magic and it was really a terrible thing. And he says that quite a few places, but there are other select places where DK says there is the emergence of a new Laya Yoga, which is the disciple or the initiate works on their centers, not for personal gain, not because they have power over others, but because by making their centers go radioactive, they now can serve more potently, because the science of the centers is intimately interwoven with the science of astrology. In fact, I would make the bold statement that astrology is nothing more than the science of how to link these higher cosmic forces with their reflection or their miniatures within our own little energetic system of the chakras. And that's why these tabulations and charts, which might seem boring at one time or another, are really important to explore because they show the linkage. And that's what we're going to explore very shortly, more about what actually happens between these different levels of entities. Okay, one more comment, then we're going to move on.
Okay, Greg has had his hand up for a long time. Go ahead, Greg, please.
Go ahead, Greg.
Okay. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. So in terms of that, the yoga process, I was relating it back to the root race process that we right now, the Aryan root race or fifth root race is really trying to integrate not only the Lemurian, Atlantean, and other race is in together, but as we move forward, this process, it becomes the awakening, becomes the process of awakening the Agni Yoga, I think, as I understood it, that and in terms of what Diane was saying about the Raja Yoga, it's essentially what has been worked out for 10,000 years in one sense through the Atlantean and Lemurian root races, but it all has to come together because if humanity is to evolve and move forward, we will need to adopt a new way of thinking, a new way of seeing, and a new way of integration, and that becomes our process for the crossing over and allowing the energies of our higher first and second and third sub-mental rays, or the first sub-rays of the mental, to carry us forth so that we can be prepared when we are awakened and the portal is open for us to enter the kingdom of the souls as a planet and all that kind of stuff.
Excellent. Thank you. That was a wonderful share. And it reminds me that the yogas or the root races don't come cyclically and replace the old. The very best of the fourth root race is absorbed into the fifth. And if I understand what Greg just said, this is important because it's not like you clean the slate and start anew. No, you take the very best. And just like right now in the fifth root race, for those who are advancing along the path, they can tap into some of these 6 root race qualities. And yes, it's going to be a long time before humanity cycles around and, they're going through the 6 root race. But once you hit that 3rd initiation, you have access to future dynamics that are just simply not expressed right now. And this is not just on the upper triad, it's also on the soul level. The soul, according to the Tibetan, psychically has all these service activities and qualities that have only dimly been tapped into, partially because people who study the occult uh, in the ancient wisdom teaching sort of shy away from anything psychic because we know it can lead without a good stable mental field into all kinds of weird places that we don't want to be. Eventually we will not be intimidated by these psychic influences, and this is where, like Beetlejuice, race 6 comes in. Very, very advanced energies, but they're of a psychic level that we fully don't understand, but will. And okay, excellent. So now we're going to move forward and we're going to talk a little bit about channels. And this is a very interesting, it's taken from quantum physics, where it explains how this dual vortex or opposite rotating tunnels. This is a side view of 2 energies brought together to create a 3rd entity, which is greater than the sum of its parts. And the energy is sucked in at the top, which is considered the northern point. It rotates. Now, in the permanent atoms that were earlier shared, you had only one vortex. And under certain conditions or circumstances, that's a perfect analogy or symbol for what DK is attempting to express. But vortices can come together to create additional magic or potency. And so what you have is energy being sucked in from the northern point, circulating or distributing its quality to these 2 secondary vortices, going in opposite directions. Everything in the pantheon of occult energy and force has to have, unless it's just pure Shambhala, it has to have some polarity in which to work, in which to create an encasement. And we're going to get into that odd word, how in alchemy and white magic, you have to have a rings past knot so that you can do magic. Otherwise, space is infinite and it's largely empty. And if you don't sheath your thought forms, your emotional forms, your projection of will in some type of channel, it will dissipate. And this is what the Antakarana is. You're actually looking at the Antakarana as science would describe it. Okay, let's take a few examples. Okay, this is astronomy, plasma physics, showing the relationship between the Earth and Venus. Now look how, again, this is like from NASA. Look at the perfect 8 that this creates. Now, we all know, don't have to be an esoteric astrologer to know that Venus is the alter ego of the planet Earth. It's higher correspondence. And And Venus is very dominant in the growth of the planet Earth, along with other planets. And this is how they interact. All these channels of communication, their auric field, their centers are in a state of rotation. And uh, one is rotating to the left, and the other one is rotating to the right. And even if this doesn't demonstrate that perfectly, and it's the tension and the polarity that allows the attraction to occur. The Venusian scheme has sent down groups of solar angels, not just one, but several at different times historically. And when humanity was in an infant state and it needed the overshadowing of the monastic spark, it relied on these other sacred planets. And I'm only focusing on Venus because it's much simpler and we can get through this quicker. But they make up a dance of energy and force. And the Venusian schemes, or the planet in its different levels, it is a saving force for this planet because it is far more advanced. The Earth had hoped by the masters or the Chohans or the Buddhas of activity or whoever regulates these higher levels, it had been hoped that the Earth would be similar to Venus, but for reasons we won't go into, it didn't quite make the grade. And now it's attempting through these new forces to really get it together. But I thought that was a very, very powerful symbol of the Earth. So let's take a quote from the Tibetan. Who would like to read this? And it's about channels and fine tubes. You know, we think of the Antakarana Bridge as a stream of light, stream of energy, a stream of force, and it is. So all we're doing here is trying to add onto that and enlarge that concept as described by conventional science in its recognition of plasma, because plasma is the closest thing to building bridges on the etheric level. Anybody like to read this quote?
Yes, Joe's got her hand up. Go ahead, Joe.
That these substances functioning actively in any particular etheric body create a network of channels. They produce fine tubes, if I may use so inappropriate a word, which take the general form of the dense material or tangible form with which they may be associated. This form underlies every part of the physical body and can be seen extending for a certain distance outside of the recognizable form. This etheric body is not in reality an ovoid, as the older occult books teach, but usually takes the form or general outline of the physical vehicle with which it is associated. When, however, the head center is awakened and functioning, then the ovoid appearance is far more frequent.
Excellent, Joe. Thank you so much. So this idea of channels and fine tubes is so important because when we get into the study of the lower etheric levels and their correspondence to higher etheric levels, it is so important. The logoic, monadic, atmic, and buddhic planes work through the sacred planets. And when a group or an individual has been able, through Agni Yoga, to contact the Buddhic plane of love again, and I apologize for being repetitive here, you cannot fully understand Buddhic fourth ray energy until the fourth initiation. And how that will be demonstrated, your alignment, your Antakarana bridge, how that will be demonstrated in your etheric body is that it will be dark purple, but it'll be bright and luminous. So there's a relationship between the yellow of the Buddhic plane and the luminous purple of the fourth subplane, counting from above down. Okay, when you're able to penetrate into the atmic energy coming into the soul body, the will aspect, which comes from higher levels, your auric field, your etheric body, I should say, and we're only talking about the etheric level, and we have all these other centers and there are other correspondents, but it would take way too long, and we've really discussed that infra nauseam in other presentations. So when you reach atmic energy, your auric field or your etheric body on that level will be a lighter purple or violet. And then respectively, monadic energy, second ray, light violet, and then the logoic plane, what DK calls a glorious translucent lavender. And between the logoic, monadic, atmic, and buddhic, and these four different etheric levels are a host of teaching tools that through triangles link all the centers from the first up through to the fifth and sixth initiations. And I should have that chart here, but I don't, because I just want to show the importance of the etheric body. It's not just some temporary thing. Every initiation you undergo, you will upgrade it. And this picture right here is probably not the best representation of the etheric body. It's more like the representation of the, it evades me, but the etheric has all these fine channels it works through. And there's a name for it. If you're into acupuncture, you would recall it. But anyway, all these finer channels make up the etheric body, and it's not just one, it's a whole series of them. And this artist, Greg Dunn, did an excellent job. Okay, let's look at these so-called tunnels, threads of consciousness. You have the galactic over to the left, and notice how they twist. This is one of the reasons why certain disciples, when they reach a certain level, are considered initiates. They're considered serpents of wisdom. This whole idea of rotation, vortexes, and the three different types of motion we find in cosmic fire: progressive, ray 1, a cyclic spiral, ray 2, rotary, ray 3. They're not just some peripheral thing. They actually are seen by clairvoyance, and in contemporary science on the level of plasma is making inroads into discovering this. They just don't know quite yet the rest of this diagram, which is, okay, it starts as a galactic knot or series of threads and channels, and then it goes on to a planetary level. Then it goes down to collectives, which we know are the groups with which we work with. And then at the end of the line, at the very right-hand side, you see one little lone figure, the individual. That is the Antakarana, devoid of, stripped of 25 books of esoteric wisdom, which give you the details of how to contact it and the important information of why this works the way it does. But there it is. It's like a series of twisted ropes that are electrical, magnetic, and based on quantum plasma. Okay, let's look at another. I had a tunnel. Okay, I'm going to skip that. Okay, here is another description of energy in its primal cause. At the very top, as opposed to looking at this from a side view, you see now it's a descending series of twisted antakarana bridges or ropes, because the antakarana is made up of more than just one ray. It's actually made up of all the 7 rays, but one will dominate, which is usually your personality ray, and why you need to know what ray it is, because then you have the color. And the same thing with the soul ray. When you're building these bridges, you know what color and what note goes with those color. You want to step off, put your bike on the side railing and jump into a Ferrari. Just learn the new Aquarian sciences that are descending on us right now as we speak. Okay, so these dual energies, they come down, they cannot cancel each other out like a weather system. Hot and dry, cold and wet. What's created? A tornado, a hurricane. Okay, in a normally passive, complacent environment, which is so still, how can there be this raging vortex coming across the landscape, grinding everything up? Why? How? Because 2 different energies or forces come together to create a third entity. And in this case, we see it descending, but if we flipped it over, we could say this is the ascending part. And this is what happens when you send out a call through invocation. Okay, so these energies come down into these twisting ropes, and down at the bottom, it says physical growth stops where the particles of frozen energy are too coarse to be drawn along any further. This is the importance of purification, physically, emotionally, mentally, because all these energies are pressing on you right now. It's not us longing, desiring, invoking these higher energies. They're pressing themselves through evolution down onto us, but there are these congested places, and that's where humanity finds itself. Okay, let's take a quote from the Tibetan. Centers, spiritual centers, chakras, should be pictured as whirling vortices with a closely woven threefold channel passing from each center to the other. And it took me a long time to put that together, and it's not entirely accurate, and how could it be? But it follows the theme. And this is where you get down to the nuts and bolts of the occult research and study. It's very scientific. And yet all these energies, these ropes, these tunnels, they're all rotating. They're doing these exquisite dances. Okay, now, my recommendation, if you want to be upgraded to what's going on in science, you get The Elegant Universe by Richard Green. And this is a summary of his book, The Elegant Universe, or at least part of it. And think of the parallel of what we're discussing and have been discussing all through these different presentations. What is the quantum world? It's about wave functions, probabilities, quantum tunneling, ceaseless rolling energy fluctuations of the vacuum, the smearing together of time and space, loops of strings and oscillating globules, uniting all creation into vibration patterns that are meticulously executed in a universe with numerous hidden dimensions capable of undergoing extreme contortions in which spatial fabric tears apart and then repairs itself. So don't give up on science. Science may be part of the New World religion. It's just not fully recognized by most of those who are more mystically inclined. They are repulsed by science because it seems so anti-feeling, so anti-mystical. It's the new seventh ray. Everything that he states here, and he's big into string theory. It's not just quantum mechanics as its mainstream. He's very advanced into all kinds of hidden energy dynamics.
This is bubble cymatics.
Okay, I'm going to stop this for just a second. Return. Okay, now now we're moving into the videos, and I cannot tell you how much I appreciate your patience. I have really downloaded a lot to think about, and I don't just ask, I beg people, please go back and review this material at a slower and a more elegant pace, because I'm violating your integrity by distributing so much technical information often in such a short period of time. It violates the wonderful heart relationship we have occasionally. But the next image is animated and it's profound. We've talked about cymatics, and everyone knows cymatics is the ability to take sound and to take an instrument and record that sound into patterns. And why is that so important? Because sound waves are hidden. And we don't see the geometry, we don't see the structure, but they are living things in themselves. They're just so ethereal that we just can't recognize them. So along comes this idea of creating a new way of looking at something that's hidden. And cymatics is evolving, and you're going to see something in this next video that is totally mind-boggling, because it's going to demonstrate and substantiate and prove conclusively that through cymatics, everything that we're learning in the Ageless Wisdom teachings is correct, and that science and art are merging with these inner laws and principles and demonstrating in new ways that you wouldn't think could ever take place 5 or 10 years ago. But anyway, I'll let you be the judge.
This is bubble cymatics. You're probably going to want to sit down for this one. This is a bubble attached to a speaker, and it can create holograms. But it also gives us some clues into our big gassy friend in space. Now, this is a pretty easy way to view cymatics. You just need a bubble and a speaker. And you can do this with one speaker or two, like this guy, and they connect. And when you push a frequency through it with a ring light, you get to see the sound through the bubble. And the sound can make some crazy shapes, like my favorite one here, the life-giving energy container, the torus. Now here's where I'm gonna break your mind. This way of viewing cymatics can create 4D shapes like the Klein bottle, just by using a frequency and a ring light with a bubble. We can conceptually visualize shapes that are outside of 3D reality.
I'm going to replay that.
This bubble cymatics, you're probably going to want to sit down for this one. This is a bubble attached to a speaker, and it can create holograms. But it also gives us some clues into our big gassy friend in space. Now, this is a pretty easy way to view cymatics. You just need a bubble and a speaker. And you can do this with one speaker or two, like this guy, and they connect. And when you push a frequency through it with a ring light, you get to see the sound through the bubble. And the sound can make some crazy shapes, like my favorite one here, the life-giving energy container, the torus. Now, here's where I'm gonna break your mind. This way of viewing cymatics can create 4D shapes, like the Klein bottle, just by using a frequency and a ring light with a bubble. We can conceptually visualize shapes that are outside of 3D reality.
Okay, that link is provided. So if you go to Makara, you'll be able to retrieve it. If you didn't get it while I replayed it. I love this quote by H.P. Blavatsky, where she says, "Refine our eyes so we can perceive the strands of spiritual progress in the yarns with which the material world is woven." Ooh, if that isn't a seventh ray statement of synthesis. Strands of spiritual progress with which the material world is woven. Isn't it amazing that the DK said that we're going to have new interpretations of the ageless wisdom, and you can't invent energy, so it's going to be always based on these perennial 7 rays, 7 planes, and all this beautiful astronomy and astrological influences, but it can be presented in a way that shows science is not against metaphysics, it's just in its infancy. And that science has its dogmas, and they resist, but they're getting swept away with a lot of different things. Okay, so we're going to end this section with, and we've shared this before. Now we're going to step back and see the big picture. We've seen different constellations, different planets, how it affects people personally, and we've granulated right down to the channels that DK has indicated will contact these forces. But this is absolutely spectacular. So take a deep breath and use it as a meditation. And here we are, the Milky Way, and we're situated right way over there.
Somewhere in the universe is a small blue planet, the third rock from a star called the Sun, just one of billions of stars in a spiral galaxy known as the Milky Way. But where in the universe is the Milky Way? A team of scientists gathered data on more than 8,000 of the galaxies that surround us. They mapped each galaxy's position and movement in space. And, for the first time, they've shown that the Milky Way is part of a much larger system of galaxies, a supercluster that they have named Laniakea. The Milky Way is nested in the furthest reaches of this structure, on the outskirts. The entire universe can be seen as an intricate network of galaxies, a cosmic web. Some areas are almost empty, dark voids. Others are densely packed with galaxies in regions known as superclusters. Superclusters are the biggest structures found in the universe, but scientists have struggled to define where one ends and another begins. To map our home supercluster, a team led by Brent Tully at the University of Hawaii studied the motions of the galaxies around us in unprecedented detail. Even though the entire universe is expanding rapidly, gravity is also at work, pulling against this acceleration. By discounting cosmic expansion, the team worked out which galaxies are being pulled towards us, shown in blue, and which are being pulled away, shown in red. This enabled them to create a map of cosmic flows, the paths that galaxies migrate along, tugged at a tiny pace by the force of gravity. Using this motion, they came up with a new way to map the distribution of matter in the universe. Delving into our home supercluster, you can see that most galaxies are being pulled towards a dense centre. This is known as the Great Attractor. Our galaxy is among those sliding towards this patch of space, which dominates our region of the universe. Let's take a different view. Each circle represents a galaxy. Again, we can see most galaxies being pulled towards the Great Attractor in the direction of the arrows. Between the Great Attractor and us, the Milky Way, there's a relatively empty area, a blue void. And next to us is Virgo, a large and dense cluster whose bright galaxies have been observed from Earth for centuries. Until now, astronomers grouped us, the Milky Way and its surrounding galaxies, with Virgo and nearly 100 other clusters in a supercluster that stretches 100 million light-years across. But using this new technique, we can see that this is just the tip of the iceberg. This cluster of clusters is merely an appendage of a much larger supercluster, more than 100 times bigger and more massive. But how did the team know how to redraw the boundaries of this cosmic map? Here's our supercluster in black and a neighbouring structure, Perseus Pisces, in red. Scientists defined the boundary as the points where the flows of galaxies diverge, like water dividing at a watershed. This is where neighbouring structures shear apart. This is the first clear definition of a supercluster. Laniakea means immeasurable heaven in Hawaiian, a fitting name for the vast community of galaxies that we are a part of. So now we know that on the edge of a supercluster called Laniakea, in a galaxy called the Milky Way, around a star we call the Sun, there is a small blue planet, our home.
Okay. If that doesn't bring a sense of awe, I'm not sure what would. Utterly profound that they're able to do this type of mapping, and the sheer size of the universe. It's just humbling is the only word that comes to mind. Anyway, I have a few in our remaining few minutes. I have a few animations I want to share, and I want the group to not just look at these animations, which are symbolic of the movement of energy, vortices, tunnels, but like HPB said, we have to imagine ourselves going into the symbol, becoming the symbol, and then looking back to get the full impact of it. So use these as a short meditation. Relax, take several even and deep breaths, and just allow yourself to melt into the symbol. Now, in the next video, which I call the dance of the triads, if you look at the upper right-hand corner, you'll see there's a triangle in red and it's pointing up, and then you have a triangle in green pointing down. And this would be like a symbol of the monadic descent down into the soul, and then the soul into the three lower vehicles of the personality. And as you watch this, imagine that they're all vortices, these triangles of vortices, and that they come in cyclically. And that's why you have the blue to the furthest of the right, because the blue monads, because it's a second ray solar system, cycle in first, and the red monads, which relate to the will aspect, cycle in last, because it really relates to future cycles, but it can be contacted. So again, relax, take a deep breath, and visualize yourself as one of these dual triangles undulating in interior space. When I see that animation, I am reminded of the quote from Agni Yoga that we are all sparks that must become flames. In this next animation, you're going to see the idea of the conduit, the channel, the tunnel, the Antakarana Bridge. And they come in and exit cyclically. And there can be two or more in incarnation, like the rays or the planes. And it creates quite a magnificent overlapping and beautiful thing to behold. So take a deep breath and just melt into this next symbol. We all merged so beautifully, there's nothing left. This is another beautiful representation of triangles, but not triangles as something static, but as full of livingness and mobility as they create and destroy only to come back together on a higher turn of the spiral. So you're going to see all these triangles moving into these rivers of light. It's exquisite. So take a deep breath and just fuse. Okay, excellent. And we're going to end our session with the mantra of fire. And as you view this short video, visualize the emotions being stilled and placid, the mind being opened and unobstructed by unnecessary thought forms, and this fire of purification coming from the heart and the will of the Father pouring down and burning out any dross in your different vehicles, any hindering thought forms, any illness or disease that either you know about or you don't know about. Let this fires of purification pass through the entire self and then pass out through this group, through all groups of New World servers that are working on a planetary level, and see this fire of purification burning out the dross in the lower elemental substance that's hindering the planet as it attempts to move forward to the next level. Would somebody like to read this mantra of fire?
I'll read it.
Thank you.
I seek the way I yearn to know. Visions I see in fleeting, deep impressions. Behind the portal, on the other side, lies that which I call home. For the circle has been well nigh trod, and the end approaches the beginning. I seek the way, all ways my feet have trod. The way of fire calls me with fierce appeal. Not in me seeks the way of peace. Not in me yearns for earth. Let the fire rage, the flames devour. Let all the dross be burnt. And let me enter through that gate and tread the way of fire.
Bargo devasya limai Yona prachodaya Bhuvasva tatsavitu vareniyam 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 Bargo devasya limai Yona prachodaya.
Excellent. I want to thank you all for taking the time to participate and be a part of this experiment, the ability to accrue information and facts that builds an edifice to a certain height, and then the ability, the courage to let go into the actual principles themselves. And even though these videos cannot do justice of these inner planes, these inner movements, they often can come closer to the true thing than the spoken word. So thank you all. I send my love and light and look forward to seeing you in our next installation.
There were a number of comments that we didn't have time to get to, but please remember that we'll post all of those comments, okay?
Excellent.
So, goodbye, everybody. Michael, I think you need to close it out.
Yeah, I close it out. People are still writing.
Yeah, okay.
And thank you for your many creative insights and comments